Welcome to Living Martial Arts with Master Ray Gale, aka the Dark Master. Living Martial Arts discuss and examines the everyday exercise, philosophy, and lifestyle of the martial arts enthusiast. The host talks about his own training, past and present, and he also interviews many martial artists to discover how they continue to live their own martial arts journey. Tune in for top tips on how to get the best out of your martial art. Or perhaps you're thinking of starting a martial art. This podcast offers you an easy way to dip your toe in. Sign up for the newsletter at livingmartialarts.com and get regular updates and training tips direct to your inbox. Follow the Dark Master on Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram at Living Martial Arts.
Hi, well, hello to everyone. This is the Dark Master on the Living Martial Arts podcast, coming back to you with another episode. I'm again excited, as I am excited for all my guests, because I try and bring you some people that are passionate about the martial arts, and we can share our stories. So I've got Mr. Charlie Wildish, who practices karate. He'll tell you a little bit about himself, I'm sure, and about his journey in karate. I've been very, very pleased in the past. Charlie invited me to a session on karate. I think we did, I'm not sure how long ago it was many years ago, but I really, really enjoyed it. And I think that you can always learn something from watching other martial arts, and sharing some of the techniques, and because in my opinion, the martial arts have all come from a very, very similar place. They may have taken slightly different directions in the past, but they've all come from the same place. So hello to you. Good afternoon to you, Charlie. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. And thank you very much for having me on your podcast. I'm very much obliged to you inviting me.
Excellent. Well, as I mentioned, well, it's been a while. It's been a while, and I know that you're very, very passionate about your martial arts. We've spoken in the past, and it's great to have you on the Living Martial Arts podcast. So I'm gonna go straight into it, and really just ask you about your own martial arts journey. How it started, and sort of how it progressed to present day. And as I always say, that question could take 3 days. Unfortunately, we haven't got 3 days, so we have to condense it a little bit. But perhaps you can tell us about that.
Well, I started karate when I was about 16. I was very shy and introverted, and at school, especially the early and middle years at school, I used to get bullied quite a lot. So when I got to 16, I was a bit older, a little bit more mature, and I decided I want this to ever happen again. So I got interested in martial arts and never looked back. So that's basically how I started. We're about the same age group, Ray. Do you remember the old TV series Kung Fu? With David Carradine.
Well, I mentioned actually recently to another guest that not only do I remember it, but I've actually got the soundtrack to the soundtrack to the series, because I had to have it. And I've got it here on vinyl, and it's one of my prized possessions. So yes,
brilliant!
I remember it very well.
I've got to say, when we look back at it now, the martial arts in the series is actually lacking. Let's be polite. Let's say that the martial arts is lacking, but it was good for its day because nobody knew anything.
Yes.
However, there's a couple of things I liked about it. One of them was just the character of the monk. It didn't matter what happened to him, all the different adventures and dangers and adversities he went to. He never got flustered. He never got angry. He never got upset. He dealt with everything in a great deal of calmness. And could always find a solution where nobody else could see a solution.
Yes.
And I found that very attractive. Not just the martial arts, the actual idea of being able to physically defend myself, but from someone who was used to being bullied, used to being afraid, to being quite honest.
Yeah.
being like that guy who was never afraid and never flustered, that really had an enormous appeal. And I'm going to say, although the martial arts were a bit lacking in the series, it did inspire me. And I think to this day, there's not been any other TV series or anything else quite like it, which matched it for the philosophical content and showing a philosophical side of the martial arts. I don't think anything's come up to it from that perspective.
No, I think you're right. It was for me. I mean, I was a very hyper character as a teenager. I also started around the age of 16, and people might see me as still being a bit hyper, but they never knew me when I was 16. So believe me, I've calmed down a lot, and you know, I understand where you're coming from. I used to watch that program, and as you say, you'd think, wow, you know, what's going to happen now? And he'd calmly just say, you know, this is the way life is, and we have to be able to deal with this, and la la la. And I think, wow, and it did capture me. It did capture me, as well as the, you know, the sort of fighting, as you say, that wasn't particularly good, but actually the philosophy was fantastic. And I actually I do like reading philosophy now. I think that that side of the martial arts probably needs to get introduced a bit earlier when we start training. I only came to philosophy probably late, I would say, in my martial arts journey. But I think if we can introduce it earlier, that might be quite helpful for a lot of people.
Well, I think most of us come to it later in the journey because while I'm I'm 58 now, coming up to 59.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're of that generation. And yeah, we get more interested in philosophy and that side of it as we get older. When we start, we're normally coming from a point of view of wanting to learn self-defense.
Yes.
And that side of it, which is certainly where I started. And we're looking more at the physical aspects. As we get older and wiser, a bit mature, we realise like just what a different person we are. Compared to how we started.
Yes.
When I started, like I say, I was a shy introvert who would very easy melt into the background. Nobody would notice me.
Yeah.
And I was happy with that because it kept the bullies away from me if I wasn't noticed. And I was used to being afraid and I just keeping out of the limelight. So the people who knew me then would be probably absolutely astounded to see me now standing in front of a class and a group of people and teaching with full confidence.
Yes.
And you know, the people that know me now didn't know me then, and I tell them, I used to be really shy and introverted. Oh yeah, sure you were, Charlie. Yeah, okay. You know, but it's how much martial arts have done for us and brought us out. I mean, okay, a lot of other life experiences have influenced as well, but I would say karate was one of the main things which has changed me as a person, or martial arts in general, not just karate.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, I'm gonna 1 second. I've got a book here. I'm just gonna get it because I got into the philosophy of martial arts, and I remember finding this book, and it was called Kodo: Ancient Ways: Lessons in the Spiritual Life of the Warrior / Martial Artist. It's written by an Aikido master called Kensho Fiora, and I absolutely love it. And I remember it's basically martial arts philosophy, Japanese culture. And I remember finding that book in a bookshop, Waterstone, something like that. And I just devoured it. I loved it. And I've read it so many times, you know, because of the lessons in there and the philosophy. And it goes into detail about what type of person you should be and all this type of thing. And it's fantastic. I really, really love it. And, you know, I like reading things like that.
Yeah, it's good. That sounds very interesting.
It is. And when I was taking my my sixth degree, actually, I took my sixth degree under the founder of Taekwondo a couple of years before he died, Major General Che Hung Hee.
That must have been amazing meeting him.
It was, and I remember coming up to the table and I was thinking, you know, he's going to ask me questions about different forms or whatever, and he just said to me, you know, tell me about yourself. And then at the end he said, right, you know, you need to read more philosophy. You need to educate yourself on philosophy. And that really struck a chord with me. And ever since then, I've been sort of reading a lot about the philosophy of different martial arts, not just Taekwondo, but different martial arts. Obviously, the name Taekwondo is quite a modern name, but Taekwondo originated out of karate anyway. And,
Wow.
it's,
I see us all as sister styles, if you
yes.
like. I mean, as you know, I got together with a friend of mine who does Kung Fu, Keith Cormack, who used to train with you many, many years ago, but
that's right, yeah,
changed into Kung Fu, and Mr. Skidmore of your
yes.
association.
Yes.
And we did a seminar looking at practical applications to our katas or patterns. So, just taking movements and how would you apply them in a more sensible way. And I thought it was good because as far as I'm concerned, Kung Fu originally they would always change as they go along. They did not embed a style in stone. It was not like this is how we do it, this is how it should be maintained and passed through in this format, and it mustn't change. No, it was a living, growing thing.
Yes.
As the environment changes, as the law changes, so should the technique change with it. And this is why China's got like thousands of different styles of Kung Fu. And when they taught it to the Okinawans, they did the same thing. They adjusted it to their build.
Yes.
So arguably, karate is just another style of Kung Fu.
Yes.
And of course, the Koreans learned quite a lot from the Japanese and the Okinawans, and they took a bit of the Chinese Kung Fu as well. I think it's fair to say most of your hands come from the karate side. A lot of your kicking techniques probably come from the North Chinese Kung Fu styles. Again, Taekwondo is arguably another style of karate or Kung Fu.
Yes,
so we're all interrelated styles. There's so much rivalry between styles at different times, which fortunately is not so prevalent now as it used to be.
Yeah.
But it's I find it very educational to work with Mr. Skidmore and Sifu Cormac, and it was great. We thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, hopefully in the future we can do something like that again, and share knowledge. In fact, when I was a young lad, as I mentioned, I started at 16, and it was just around the same time I started my apprenticeship at Rolls-Royce as an aircraft engineer. And we had a number of people there. We were all sort of similar ages, actually, into martial arts. And there was me doing Taekwondo. We had another guy who was doing karate. We had another guy Kung Fu, and so on. And we used to get together on a lunchtime and sort of teach each other. I used to teach a little bit of Taekwondo. Somebody else used to teach karate, and so on. And it was really good. It was really good fun. Just Brilliant. Seeing how the others moved and how the philosophy on developing power was sort of just a slightly different take on the same thing. So yeah, it was good. And obviously in recent years, in the 80s, Taekwondo sort of moved slightly away from its original base and brought on the concept of sine wave, the sort of up and down movement that General Che brought in. That when I first got introduced to it, I thought, "What is this?" But now that I understand it more,
yes,
it's a lot better.
I'm familiar with the concept. I don't train it myself, being a karateka, but I'm familiar with the concept.
Yeah, and as you say, I think they all come from the same place. They've probably branched off to different areas, and but martial arts generally have come from the same place or a similar place.
Well, one of my best friends, Keith Cormac, who I mentioned earlier on, the Kung Fu guy, we've been friends for decades, and we often train together. I mean, sometimes we used to hire very, very cheap or who practices forms. I would practice my katas, and then we're kind of like, "Hey, that movement you're doing is supposed to one of the movements in my kata. How do you apply that?" And he kind of like, "Well, yeah, I'd use it this way." I'm thinking, like, okay, that gives me another way for me to use a movement in my kata, and vice versa. We would kind of cross-fertilize these ideas with each other.
Sure.
How do you use that? Well, I use it this way, and you use it that way, and we come away with two different ways to use the same movements.
Yes.
So, and And I come to realise on the surface, some of these styles look very, very different. Underneath the surface, the principles that make them work are the same. They're just applied in different ways. I mean, it's like there's one English language, but look how many ways you can use the English language. But all the fundamental rules underneath it, whether you write a novel or whether you write poetry or whether you write a song, it's all coming from the English language or whatever other language you may speak. It's all coming from the one language, playing it slightly different ways.
Yeah, definitely. Well, moving on from there. So I know that you say you teach martial arts and involved with it. But so how these days, how do you fit sort of your martial arts into your everyday life? What does that look like for you at the moment?
Well, apart from my own wrestling, I try and do a little bit, if I can, at least every day. Sometimes life gets in the way. But yeah, I try and do a little bit every day. Try and do it in the morning. I've got a punch bag upstairs in the loft, which I have a play with sometimes. Pandemics and lockdown, I regularly get together with Keith as well. So we can compare ideas and my classes. But also, I run my own blog. So I'm always looking for interesting content for that. What would be interesting to people? What would people want to know about? I'm also looking at different ways of teaching my own classes, and how can I explain something and make it more clear to people so they can understand the concepts better.
Sure.
The other thing is, as training as we get a little bit older. When we're young, we're naturally fit, we're athletic, naturally strong. As we're getting older, we lose some of our natural athleticism, and we lose some of our natural strength and physical abilities. But this traditional martial arts are so brilliant. When you actually kind of start studying more the actual structures and the body mechanics of it, and different ways you can use it. Now, we may not be so fit and strong as we get older, but our body structures can be powerful or can get better. There's a story by a guy, I've got one of his books, Lawrence Kane.
Okay, yeah.
Now, he tells a story. When he was a young man, he got into a fight with this. He's an American guy. He got into a fight with this big American footballer who was much, much bigger than him. And the fight ended up with not much of a result either way. It's more or less a draw. But he said there's this big, powerfully built bloke trying his best to hurt him, and this big, powerful bloke didn't really hurt him much. And then later on, many years later, he was training with this little Maoan guy, much, much smaller, a lot older, and all the rest of it. But he's really got all his body mechanics down and all the internal connections down. And he demonstrated it on Lawrence Kane. It was just a tap, and he came out with enormous bruises. I think it was like a kick to the leg that he was, if I remember right. It was a kick to the leg,
sure,
but done very, very lightly. And he got a big bruise come up and could hardly walk. So you had this big, powerful guy trying to hurt him and was totally ineffective. And this very tiny, old Okinawan guy trying not to hurt him and hurt him a bloody sight more. Because they had that much more, that internal connection and that whole body working as one cohesive unit. And I think, and this is the side of things I'm particularly interested in now. I think particularly as we get older, it gets more and more important because we're losing other physical abilities, but this is one side we can still focus on.
I agree. I think for me, as well as that philosophy side, I'm getting more and more into the meditation side and the breath work. Meditation is difficult for me because I'm quite a hyper person, and my personality is very much like, I'm actually very shy. It's strange because in the environment of Taekwondo, I'm not. I can hold my head up. But, you know, if I go to a party and there's lots of people I don't know, then I'm going to be in the corner. So
I can relate totally. I can relate totally to that.
Yeah. So I have to sort of control that sort of personality, and meditation that I've started recently. Well, not recently. I've been doing it for some time, but I found it very, very beneficial. And the meditation has led me to breath work as well. It's led me to some breath work called Bateko, and then the Wim Hof method. I'm exploring some yogic breathing as well now. And I think when you realize, you know, as you say, you get to a certain age and you realize that your physical powers are waning, but you look at other ways to stay fit and healthy, and to still carry on your martial arts journey. And that's what I've chosen really at the moment, is that meditation and breath work.
Well, yeah. I mean, a lot of Japanese martial arts do little meditation at the beginning and the end of the class,
Yes.
just for a minute or so. And it's normally seen as, when you do it at the beginning of the class, well, it's just to calm you down and like get rid of the stresses and whatnot of the day, or stresses and worries, calm you down before you start training, and again, calm you down before you get home. And yes, that is part of it, but I think it's very, very oversimplified.
Yes.
Because I meditate as well at home. I did a little bit before this interview, actually.
Okay, right.
Myself for the interview.
Yeah.
Just a few minutes.
Yeah.
I think sometimes with meditation, people miss the point a little bit. They think it's something that you do for a few minutes and then you forget about it until the next time you do it.
Yeah.
Now, part of meditation is not just about making your mind quiet. I mean, that's part of it. But it's about to teach you to observe your own thoughts.
Yes. Because
very often, particularly people who lose their temper a lot, or very often people who have mental health issues, they react in a certain way. Sometimes, and it stimulates a response, and the responses come out on autopilot.
Yes.
And people do not very often question the thoughts that they are having. Like, you know, something goes wrong. Oh, this always happens to me. Why is it always me that gets this? Now, if you kind of stop and you analyze that thought, well, it doesn't always happen to me. This hasn't happened to me for a couple of months. Yes, it did happen a few months ago, but it's been a long time since it's happened to me. It doesn't always happen to me.
Yeah.
So when you stop and observe the thoughts, the hold that the thought has over you starts to dissipate.
Sure.
And meditation, people say like, oh yeah, you're supposed to silence your mind. And yes, that is it. But the mind is there to think. That's what your brain does. It thinks.
Yes, yeah.
So it's almost impossible to totally switch it off. But rather than trying to switch it off, you just think, right, okay, I will observe the thoughts that come into my mind. Just sitting there and like, I wonder what's for tea tonight. Okay, hello thought, thank you for that thought. Okay, next. And you just address the thought and then you let it go. And you get used to addressing the thought, let it go. And from, like I say, from a mental health point of view, the thoughts that come in, if you can get used to looking at those thoughts and thinking like, well, actually, that's not actually true, is it? You know, analyze what's along. From a martial arts point of view, I did a seminar with Kevin O'Hagan once, and he's a fantastic teacher. Does reality-based teaching. And what I will say, a lot of his stuff is generic enough that it's good enough for any martial artist. I mean, he's a jiu-jitsu guy, but I've got a lot out of it as a karateka. And he was on about like how you react to things, how you can choose how you react to things. And I'll give you an example in a second. But there's a phrase I heard years ago: we think we're having a thought, but very often the thought is having us.
Yes.
Yeah, something happens, something provokes us, and we react to the thought, and we lose our temper, and we lash out and whatever. The thought's having us. We're not having the thought.
No.
For example, Kevin O'Hagan's come out with, it was brilliant. It's I could be walking along the street and, pardon the language, somebody could shout out, "Oi, Charlie, you're a wanker." No,
Yeah.
but I can either, "How dare you call me that? I'm not having that." Or I can just go, "How the hell does he know that?" Okay, next time I walk on. I've got the choice how I respond to it. And I think that's where meditation comes in, by making you more aware of your own thoughts. It gives you more choices how you respond to situations.
Yes.
Because you're actually aware of the thoughts you're having rather than the thought having you.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I don't know whether you've ever. That reminds me of a book that I've read a number of times called The Chimp Paradox.
The chimp paradox.
Yeah. I don't know if you've
Okay.
ever read it. It's written by a psychologist who says basically, we have two sides to our personality. We have our chimp, and sometimes we need to control our chimp. Because our chimp does things that perhaps we don't really want to do, and our chimp's a bit naughty, and we have to try and put our chimp back in the box sometimes. Anybody listening to this, I certainly recommend it. It's a very good book. It's written by a psychologist. I can't remember the name of the chap. It's been a bestseller, but it's called The Chimp Paradox. And it talks about the other side of our personality. Yeah. And how to control our chimp, basically. But that's what that sounds like to me, what you're saying there. And I think, maybe meditation allows us to do that in a slightly different way. It's
Yes.
I mean, I've certainly found it beneficial. And again, anybody listening to this, I would say certainly have a go. I actually started it there was a guy American guy called Light Watkins, and he basically talks about very simple meditation of just learning to sit for 5 minutes, then learning to sit for 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be long to start with, as you say, concentrating on just noticing your breathing, the breath in, the breath out, and so on, and then going from there. And that's how I started. That was quite an easy way in for me. And also he said, and this was quite a revelation to me as well, he said that you don't need to sit in the lotus position with your legs crossed. you can sit in a chair with your back upright. And I thought, wow, okay, I can do that.
Yeah. I mean, especially for some of us, after decades of training, some of us our knees aren't all that good.
Exactly.
Sitting cross-legged or I can't sit in the lotus position. I can sit cross-legged, but I can't do the lotus position.
Yeah.
It's used to me. So I agree.
Yeah. Yes.
One of the people I've listened to is Eckhart Tolle. Who wrote the book The Power of Now. And although that's a general book on philosophy, I think so much of it applies to martial artists.
Yeah.
I mean, the power of now is very much about accepting what is.
Yes.
Okay? I mean, you could go around like, oh, this is so unfair. Why am I in this situation? Why does this happen to me? Why haven't I got a better car? Why haven't I got a better job? And you use an awful lot of mental energy wishing something was different.
Yes.
And all that mental energy is totally wasted.
Sure.
Now, by accepting, it doesn't mean like, oh, okay, I'm in a rundown house. It's not a very nice house, but I have to accept that I'm living here, and that's going to be the rest of my life, and my rest of my job's going to be rubbish for the rest of my life, and I have to accept that. That's not what it's talking about.
No.
But if you accept, right, okay, this is where I am now. This is where I am now. I accept where I am now. Okay, what can I do about it? Now, all that energy that you put into wishing it away and thinking about how unfair it is that you're in this situation, instead of wishing it away, well, okay, I accept that I'm here. What am I going to do about it? Now you can put all that energy into finding a way out of that situation, how to better your situation, how to get a better job, how to get a better house, how to get a better whatever, how to get better at martial arts. I mean, you and I in our late 50s could be sitting here thinking like, oh, I wish I was flexible like I was in my 20s. I wish my knees was like they was when I was back in my 20s. And we can wish that all day long. Or we can sit there and thinking, well, actually, a low kick to the thigh is going to do a lot more mischief than that youngster's kick to the head.
Yeah,
So,
well,
yeah, we can adapt around it that way.
yeah, no, that's true. I hope that people listeners can hear there's a bit of crackling on the audio, so I'm hoping that doesn't come through when we put the recording out. So if it does, then I apologise now for that. But no, that's great. I think it is important, and maybe that, as you say, it's an age thing. You know, do the early years in martial arts of you know, running around and doing the exercises and being super fit and whatever, and then actually you realize there's a lot more to it as well, which I think is probably probably a life thing, and something that people should get to if you're there long enough. So those youngsters that are listening, you've got this to come.
Well, and we say about as we get older, when we're young, we like the physical side of it, and that's right and proper. We enjoy the physicality of it. We enjoy the energy. We like to move as fast and strong, as powerful as we can, and yeah, that's all right and proper. But like I say, as we get older, I'm getting more and more interested in like the structure side of it.
Yes.
And the structures are so well thought out and so clever. I mean, to give an example, I've got a lady joined my class. She got a black belt in Wales. She was off training for a number of years. She moved to the West Country, and after a few years, she wanted to get back into training again, so she joined my class. And she's an absolutely lovely lady, and she's a real asset to my club. But one time we was talking about the rising block. Now, I used her to demonstrate, because I knew how this was going to go. I mean, I'm about 5'11" and a half. I'm almost 6 foot, and this lady's quite petite. So I had her in front of the class, and I had her do rising block, but I had her do it in a bad form. So I had her standing square onto me, her forearm parallel with the chest,
Yeah,
and I pressed down on it. Now, when you do it that way with the forearm parallel to the chest, you've got to have a lot of strength in your elbow to keep that in place.
yeah, sure.
And that takes a lot of work. When you angle it 45 degrees forward and 45 degrees upwards, as we would normally do it, then that pressure, it goes, instead of being taken at the elbow, it goes through the elbow into the shoulder.
Yes, yeah.
Now, beginners will often have their shoulder. And in which case, if they're doing it that way, then it takes a lot of strength to keep the shoulder in place.
Yes, that's right.
You keep the shoulder relaxed and down, as it should be, as per the proper structure. And the force goes through the elbow, into your torso, and so on. Now, with this lady, I had a puncture and I pressed down on the forearm, and it buckled fairly easy. Then I had her do it with puncture, and I pressed down, and it held. And then I kind of stepped back a little bit, and I actually leaned against her. So leaning into it with all my weight, my 14 plus against this much, much smaller lady, and she held my weight quite easily because she had a good structure. Not because she was strong or super fit, but she had a good structure. And I could see her eyebrows. She was surprised that she could take that much pressure. And it's a structure since she had practiced for years and years and years, but she didn't realize how powerful it was.
Sure.
And then we did another demonstration with her. I had her put that rising block into my neck. And with her permission, I tried to pull her into me like a guy would try to force a woman in for a kiss, for example. So I had my hands around her waist, pulling her in. I was trying to push my head towards her head.
Yes.
And I used the structure into my neck, and I could not pull her into me. I'm a lot bigger than she is. I'm a lot stronger than she is, but she just used that picture, and she could hold me away.
Sure.
And it's a really strong structure that a small woman can hold a much bigger man at me relatively easy. And this is where I think a lot of people don't realize how much there is in our martial arts that, we have these really structures them, we don't need to be so big and athletic and so on, particularly as we get older.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I've got another lady who trains with me. She's in her 70s. She's fantastic. Just before the lockdown, she got a black belt, and I was really proud of her. Because she's dyspraxic, she's got COPD, so she's got all these limitations, but she just keeps going, going. And we was partnered up one time. So I wasn't partnered with, doing partner work, and we was using a block, but we was using it as a strike. So we block with one hand and use it as a strike coming into the neck. And she was partnered up with this big guy who's about the same height as me. He's probably broader, and he's a very strong, powerfully built guy. And she caught him in the neck. She caught him a little bit harder than she was supposed to, and he was kind of like gagging for breath a little bit, and he got some water. A few days later, he thought, I better go and check this out with the doctor because it's still hurting. And the doctor said, oh, you've got a little bit of torn cartilage in your throat. It'll be all right, but, you've got a bit of torn cartilage there. And we come back and we told Dawn, and she was like, but I hardly touched him. I did it really lightly. And I'm thinking, well, okay. I said, the thing is, Dawn, you had a good structure. You had a really good structure. I mean, I'm not sure how much she weighs. She's quite a smallish lady. Let's say she's like 7 or 8 stone. You've got a really good structure. You put 8 stone behind that structure, and you put that into a delicate spot, you're going to do damage. And she was really glad that she had damaged this guy who was so much bigger than her, so more powerful than her, and she had damaged him without trying. She had damaged him when she was actually trying not to. She was trying to control it.
Yes, yeah.
So she still damaged him. And she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, no, it's not about being sorry. We're not telling you off here. We just want you to appreciate how powerful this can be. Because you, who's in your 70s, she's very petitely built. She's not no Amazon. So, and she's got breathing difficulties and all the rest of it.
Sure.
This small leg could damage this bloke without trying to, because she had a good structure and put all her weight into a vulnerable point behind a structure that didn't bend, buckle, or fold in any way.
Yes, yeah.
And I think there's fascinating things about traditional martial arts as we get older. I mean, no disrespect, but likes of boxing, for example.
Sure.
Yes, they have good structures as well, but a lot is fitness and strength.
Yes.
And when you haven't quite got the same fitness and strength, it doesn't work so well. But the traditional arts, they can still work very, very well because of the structures. Now, we may lose our fitness and athleticism, but we can still have very, very good structures as we get older.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm hoping that's the case. I'm coming up to my 22nd birthday very soon, so I hope that's the case. Well, what I think, as martial artists, certainly for me, I love my martial art, but also love a lot of other things as well. I love coming away from my martial art to fill my time with playing the guitar and the harmonica. I like to juggle a little bit. I like to do some puzzles. Puzzles are one of my things that I like to. I like to meditate doing a puzzle and a moving meditation. So, what about you? What sort of things do you like when you're not doing martial arts?
Basically, spending time with family.
Yeah.
I also meditation as well. I enjoy meditating. Friends, family, a good movie. And I also like nature.
I've got
a dog. Like to take him for a walk in the woods.
Great.
I'm lucky that where I live in Somerset, there's some very good walks very, very nearby. So it's good to get out in the countryside.
Sure.
I mean, I like mountains and hillsides. I like being by the beach, but my favourite is woods. Particularly if there's a stream nearby, because it's just so full of life and living energy all around, all the big
is.
trees all around you, to the sides of you, above you, and the shrubs. It's just so totally full of life all around, and it's just a great energy, and it's a healing environment. It's great, just lovely. I like a good walk through the woods.
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, I think it's something that I've got into again as I've got older, and I can appreciate the beauty of those things more. You know, I used to see certain things and just see it as a training opportunity, but now I go for walks. I was going for a walk recently, and I was looking at the change in the trees and the flowers in a week. And how the bloom has started to come through, and the colors and so on. Whereas I definitely know that when I was 15, 16, that wouldn't have interest. I would no interest at all. I would just walk past it and think, yeah, that's a tree.
Well, yeah. I mean, when my daughter was smaller, we used to go out for walks sometimes, and she was like, "Why are we going for a walk? All it does is make your legs ache." Yeah, but look at the beauty of all this countryside. Well, yeah, it's just trees and grass. But now she's wiser. I mean, okay, she's in her mid-20s now.
Yeah.
And now she can appreciate the beauty of countryside. I mean, okay, she wouldn't want to walk miles and miles in it, but she's beginning to kind of appreciate the woods and the countryside, which she didn't. No, why are we doing this? It just makes your legs ache. Come on, come along.
well,
so, yeah, and I was the same as a kid.
Yeah, it's amazing how well, I think that's what we're supposed to be, isn't it? We're supposed to mature and be able to appreciate beauty as we get older. But listen, Charlie, thank you very much. We're nearly out of time, actually. It's been a fantastic catch up with you. It's been a long time. I hope it's not as long again before we're in each other's company, and we can share.
We
can share some martial arts stories. I do occasionally have the occasional beer, but my main tipple is green tea, which is what I tend to drink most of the time. But I have been known to drink a bit of alcohol. But I would love to share some whatever kind of liquid refreshment we're going to share. I'd love to sit down with you at some point and share some time with you. I'd also love to say as well, that'd be really nice to people listening. I'm going to put information about Charlie's blog in the show notes, and maybe if you want to share any of your where you teach and so on, if the listeners can come along and connect with you, that would be great also. But I thank you very much for coming along on the Living Martial Arts podcast, and
thank you for having me. I think it's great what you're doing, because so many people get tied up with just their own style or their own organisation. I really like that you're kind of making this more. People are really great. I think you're doing a fantastic job.
Well, thank you very much, Charlie. I appreciate it. I think all martial arts, they've all got something to offer. There are some lovely people in the martial arts, and you are one of those people. I speak to people, and I've heard your name in many circles actually, and it's always been nice things said about you. So definitely. So take care and look after yourself, and hopefully we'll catch up again very soon.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, thank you very much for having me on. That's appreciated.
You're welcome. Thank you.